If you live in Texas, your carbon footprint in Austin versus Dallas versus Houston is going to be different. You have different impacts on the grid, and that's going to impact your carbon footprint.
So one of the things that stood out to me when we first connected was something that I think is near and dear to my heart when it comes to talking about these things is how do you make them easy for people to play with? And I like your website. I can make it just it's something I could give to my kids and I go, oh, I actually get it. Versus some of the other, I think, carbon calculators I've seen out there. It's like looking at my FICO score. It's just not exciting. So maybe talk a little bit about your website and I'll pull it up. For people to take a look at. But could you elaborate on kind of how you went about doing this?
Yeah. I took a lot of carbon footprint quizzes. I probably did over 20 of them. And there were things that I liked, things that I think that could be improved. And I took everything and built our Clever Carbon quiz. And the quiz is a couple of questions. It's really short. It takes, we say 2 minutes, but really it takes under a minute to do. And there's really very few things that have a large impact on your carbon footprint. Your commute, your diet, how much you fly, energy at your home. Is it renewable, and how much energy do you use? And actually, one of the big determinants is what country you live in. And there's a lot to unpack there. Depending on your country, the average carbon footprint is really different. So I wanted to create a learning tool that wouldn't be doom and gloom, that would be fun, interactive, and personalized. So when you take the carbon footprint quiz, it's an interactive experience, but at the end, you also get a badge that has your name and your carbon footprint. And you can download that. You can share it to social media. It's got really fun branding. And the idea was that people will take the quiz and share that. So we wanted to just make it fun, and you don't have to download anything. You don't need to share your personal information. But, Nick, there is no quiz out there that is 100% accurate. It's just impossible. If you live in Texas, your carbon footprint in Austin versus Dallas versus Houston is going to be different. You have different impacts on the grid, and that's going to impact your carbon footprint. But also, do people want to answer questions around, how old is your hair dryer? What type of condition is it? How many times in a year do you blow dry your hair before 7 a.m., between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m.? Then repeat, rinse and repeat all those questions for.
Oh yeah, you could go down the rabbit hole all day.
So I think the important thing is to know that you're getting approximation. You're creating a tool that helps people learn, A, you have a carbon footprint, B, what are the things in your life that have the largest impact, and 3, how can you go from there to reduce it if you want to. We never assume at Clever Carbon that people want to reduce their carbon footprint, but we have resources there passively if they do.
Yeah, and I think my wife and I often talk about this. She helps me with a lot of research and fact finding, and she's far better than I am at sleuthing the web.
Mhm.
But some of the things that we think were interesting, back to kind of just digging into data points, is I think overall our clothing industry, right, in the world emits way more CO2 than flying airplanes around and cars, right, like all of it. And then you go, wow, that's. I think most people just don't think that. Like I know I didn't until I got into this, and
Yeah.
it is a hard problem. But I think, like you said, just starting is important enough, and looking at it and saying, hey, if I take the Clever Carbon quiz, it's not about precision, but at least I have something that's going to enlighten me. And I think the hope from that is, oh, what can I do about it? Right. Oh, there's a few things I can now go do, but it's really hard to kind of quantify and think through. So when you created this quiz, was that kind of the approach then overall? Was, okay, I'm going to just focus on the big swaths, and I'm just going to kind of cap it at this.
Yes, exactly. And one of the really key questions that we ask in our quiz that not a lot of quizzes ask is, what country do you live in? So let me give you an example. The average carbon footprint of an individual in the US is around 17 and a half tons annually. The footprint of someone in the UK, 8.3. Someone in
Mhm.
Vietnam, 2.1. So if that same person from those different countries, or the different person from the different countries, were taking a quiz and they didn't answer what country they live in, they could potentially have the same carbon footprint, right?
Mm.
So one of the key questions that we incorporated that really helps kind of get closer to what the actual footprint is asking what country they're from. And we use data from the Global Carbon Atlas. They publish, pretty recent data on almost every single country. And so that's the first question we ask is what country you live in, because yeah, it's so different depending on where you're from.
Hmm. One of the things I was thinking about as we started chatting, and my hope for a measurement like yours was the credit score. So, the credit score actually came out in I think it was the 50s, and then it was adopted by a pretty big bank at the time. Once they started using it, then a bunch of other banks adopted it. And so, if you think about where you are today and where it could go, I mean, how do you think about driving more usage? Clearly, people can go to your website. By the way, it's clevercarbon.io, and they can take the quiz there.